Do you want to discover more joy, peace, and freedom with food, exercise, and your body? Here we bring a compassionate, holistic, and sustainable approach to fitness so you can fully enjoy the life you want and express your unique self with the world. I'm Michelle Roscoe, and I want to help you find fitness freedom. I'm so glad you're here. Today I'm going to share something that has the potential to help you shift your views and thus decisions around food, around exercise, an idea that could potentially free you from guilt and shame and false pride around food and exercise and your decisions around it, something that will help you make better decisions without so much stress, okay? So if you're interested in that, keep listening. Yesterday, I watched a TikTok video. It was funny. This person was pointing out that there was a Harvard study done in 2012 that showed a high correlation between intelligence, high IQ levels, and same-sex attraction. And at the end said something like, if you're not queer, it's because you're too stupid. It was just funny. They said it better. But it brings to mind what I'm going to bring up here is a spectrum. And we kind of acknowledge that there is a spectrum around our sexual preferences, our sexuality, from hetero, I'm only attracted to people of the opposite sex, to same sex, I'm only attracted to people of the same sex, and so much in between, which is why we have LGBTQIA+, there's intersex, there's asexual, there's agender, there's non-binary, there's lesbian, you understand, there's so many different variations as humans, which makes it beautiful. And we use the symbol of the rainbow in the queer community to represent that. Just like a rainbow, there's a spectrum of colors, and our brains and our eyes don't even pick up on the full spectrum of colors, which is pretty neat. I bring up this spectrum because I've addressed this in my program with coaching about food, and I'm going to address it here as well. Food is on a spectrum, and so is movement. You can think about, there's foods that are plants that we just can pick from the ground and eat. There's foods that require more preparation. Animal-based foods. There's a whole range of foods that we consume as human beings, all the way to jelly beans. Like I had some jelly beans last night, all different along this huge spectrum. And it is super helpful for us in our relationship to health and food and exercise to accept all foods as on the spectrum, to accept all movement patterns and exercises, workouts as on a spectrum, because it helps us make choices not based on right or wrong. So the issue with not seeing food on a spectrum, or exercise on a spectrum, what can happen, or even our fitness as on a spectrum, what can happen is we get into this black and white thinking. And this black and white thinking is truly responsible for a lot of disordered behaviors, a lot of pain, a lot of suffering, a lot of guilt, a lot of shame. A long time ago, philosophers, way back in Greece, I think it was it Hippocrates? One of those guys. If you know Greek history, you probably know more than I do, apparently. One of those guys, what is Apollo? One of those guys started seeing food as medicine, and started touting certain foods as more beneficial than others. And to be fair, yes, certain foods have different chemical properties which interact with our bodies in different ways than other foods. This is true. This is fact. It's true. It's science. But what happened is taken to the extreme over time, and now all the way up to the present time and the culture that we live in, there's a lot of morality around food. So we tend to see food as good or bad. And this is the opposite of a spectrum where things are all along the same line. So if you think about a spectrum, where does red become orange, or where does green become blue? There is something in the Kabbalion which talks about universal laws. The law of polarity, it says opposites meet. All seemingly opposite qualities are along the same line. I'm not quoting it perfectly, but basically it's the spectrum idea where even things that seem opposite are on the same stick, so to speak, or on the same spectrum, so to speak. So we might see, let's take an example in this modern world. We might see French fries as the devil. They are bad foods. They're fried, they're carbs, they are salty, and they don't have a lot of nutritional qualities to them. They're quote unquote bad foods. On the other hand, we might see, let's say, couscous as a good food. It has minerals and vitamins. It's a whole grain, so our body digests it slowly. You don't have to put fat on it. So we start to put these foods in good and bad categories. French fries are bad, couscous is good. And the issue with this is that, one, foods inherently have zero morality. There's no inherent goodness or badness about French fries. French fries are just French fries. They're literally potatoes that have been chopped and fried and salted. And couscous has no inherent good or bad qualities. It's just a grain that was, I don't know the exact process of couscous, but it was harvested and probably cleaned up and ready to boil, and boiled and prepared for us to eat. And I know this sounds a little bit like, but wait, Michelle, don't doctors say we should eat these kinds of foods? And isn't it research that, there are these like foods that are good for us and foods that are bad for us? Yes, and seeing foods, the problem with seeing the issue that comes up when we see foods or exercise or anything around health and fitness as good or bad, black and white, is we start to identify with what we eat. And I know this sounds kind of like maybe, no, I would never do that. I don't identify with what I eat. But think about it. If couscous is good in this example and French fries are bad, if you eat French fries, what might you feel as a person in your identity? You might feel bad. You might feel guilty. You might start worrying about your salt intake, and you might think, oh, I'm going to gain weight because I am eating this food, or I ate so many French fries last night, like my body is all of my cells and I'm going to have a heart attack. And you start to put all this meaning into a simple act of eating French fries versus if you ate couscous, you might feel very justified. You might feel very good about yourself. I ate couscous, and it was so healthy for me, and it was delicious, and I didn't even put any grease on it or oil on it. And you might feel really good about yourself, and mentally you might feel a little more clearer, and whatever good thing happens in your body, you're like, yep, it's because of the couscous. and that's appealing. It's appealing because we kind of can play this game with ourselves. We can play this guilt penance cycle of, I ate couscous, I'm good. Oh no, I messed up. I ate French fries. I'm bad. And it's really not starting with the food, because inherently the food is not good or bad, but we're using food as a way to play these games, so to speak, or play out these stories that we already have in our mind about who we are and about our identities. And it is so easy to do, and it's actually kind of satisfying, because if we keep eating couscous or eating the good foods that we're supposed to eat, we can feel good about ourselves. Like we feel accomplished, we feel clean, we feel noble, we feel righteous, we feel virtuous. We've said no to the bad foods, we've said yes to the good foods, and it can feel really pleasing. We do this with exercise too. Like, I worked out an hour every single day this week. I feel good. And so much of it is just coming from our own stories and our own brains. Your brain is the most powerful organ in your body. Your brain is where everything happens, which is why in my coaching, I start with our identity, our brains, our mindset, because that's where everything starts. When you can start there and shift your brain and get into those mindsets that are helpful, like I'm sharing with you now with this spectrum thing, then it makes the choices kind of like a default. Positive choice is a default rather than... So we're starting with the brain, okay? So the appeal is there around assigning morality to foods or to exercises. But in the end, it is more helpful, more beneficial for you to take away that construct of good or bad. And I know it sounds scary, but just for a moment, just ask yourself, what if there were no bad foods? What if there were no good foods? What if there was no wrong way to exercise or move? What if there was no one right way to exercise or move? Just play with that. Even pause it, maybe think about it for a little bit, pause this episode. What if there were no good foods or bad foods? What if there were no good exercises or bad exercises? What if there was no one right way, or I wasn't doing it wrong? What if I wasn't doing it wrong? What if I wasn't bad because of what I ate yesterday? What if I wasn't bad because I didn't go to work out last week? What would that leave me with? And it might be scary because, rules and constructs feel safe. They help us feel secure. Like, I have this, so when I have this, I feel safe. But in reality, it shunts us from learning to trust ourselves and learning to connect with ourselves. So when you do take away those rules, when you do take away the good and bad dynamic, the black and white with food and exercise, it feels scary, but ultimately it's going to help you make better choices, and not just for your body, but for your mind. And that's where the freedom comes in. This is what happened to me when I was in my restrictive phase of my eating disorder. I had so many rules for myself. I only ate clean foods. I never ate bad foods. I only ate good foods. Like, I made conscious decisions to eliminate all sugar, all preservatives, I cooked everything pretty much from scratch that I ate. And I checked all the ingredients. I was the cleanest eater. And after that, I realized I need to give up my rules. This is not serving me. This is not helping me. This is obsessive. And then I started to let myself eat quote unquote bad foods. And because I still had this mindset of good foods and bad foods, it put me in this cycle of guilt. So I was able to hold that, I'm only eating couscous. I'm only eating the clean, good foods. And I felt self-righteous. I felt validated. I felt good in myself. And then when I let go of my rules because I was trying to, move towards quote unquote normalcy or recovery, then when I did eat those bad foods, I still had that mindset. So I would feel so guilty. I'd feel so much shame because I still identified, even though I was changing my behaviors, I didn't change my mindset around those foods until later on. And I learned through the hard way, which seems to be a theme in my life, honestly. I learned things the hard way. Help me out. So I had to learn that it wasn't necessarily the foods that I was eating. It was the way that I saw them and the way that I saw myself. And as I started to, remove the morality for food over time and started to, I guess, be kinder to myself and see myself as worthy and good no matter what, that's when the sting kind of went away and I didn't have to be in this cycle. Because when I did eat those bad foods, I would make up for it. I did the guilty part, then I did the penance part, either by exercise, taking laxatives, or restricting my eating. And we have to start with our mindset is the point of this whole podcast and everything that I talk about. We have to start with our mindset, and what can help you in regards to making better choices in trust and freedom is to see all foods as on a spectrum. There's no good, there's no bad. Think about what food might be worse on the spectrum, what food might be better on the spectrum, and let go of the rules so that you can learn to trust yourself. And this is impossible, quite impossible, when you don't accept yourself as you are, when you don't see yourself as a deserving human being inherently. And this is why it's so important to start with that place. I'm not saying that I'm perfect and I have this all down. In fact, this morning I was feeling very unworthy and feeling really hard on myself, and I'm still kind of coming out of it. But that's why we start with worthiness. We start with our power and our inherent value as human beings, away from food, away from exercise. And that's why I created the 4-H method, because it starts with your mindset. It starts with how you see yourself and getting to a place where you know your worth, and from there making better decisions around food and exercise. I hope that this was helpful for you. And as a queer person, I am all about talking about the spectrum and rainbows. FYI, I am on the rainbow part of, I identify as pansexual. I'm sexually attracted to all gender expressions and kinds of people, but I think I'm only homo-romantic. I've never really been in love with someone of another gender other than woman, and yeah, that's where I am, at least now, in my realization of my own sexuality. But yeah, share with me, where are you on the rainbow spectrum? Was this helpful for you? Do you have any thoughts, any questions? Feel free to email me. You can reach out on Instagram, and if you like this episode, give it a good review. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you soon. Hey there, me one more time, because this is my podcast. I just want to say thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your time. If you would be so kind and generous as to leave a review, a good review, it would mean a lot to the podcast and to growing this so more people can get a hold of it. If you would like to get more support, continue listening to this podcast. Follow me on Instagram, friend me on Facebook. You can find me in the link in the show notes. Always feel free to reach out to me. An email is always welcome. Happy to hear from you. And the best way that I actually can help you is, if and when you're ready, is for you to join the 4-H method. It's my signature program, and it helps you make your body your home and your health your hero journey, transforming your health and life from the inside out. Remember, you are worthy, you are powerful. Like you, love you, Coach Michelle.